Hey, thanks for clicking on Mike Snuffer Reports. So I've been following the Brittney Griner case for the past several months. I'm recording this in July of 2022. Brittney Griner, WNBA star, was arrested in Russia in February of this year. So we're at the point now that the United States is trying to figure out how to get her and a former Marine who's also in custody in Russia back to the United States. Well, there's another central figure in this whole trade, and it's a guy by the name of Viktorbout. Viktorbout doesn't exactly ring a bell. So as I start doing some research, I'm like, oh, it's that Viktorbout. Viktorbout was a Russian arms dealer who was finally arrested by the United States government back around 2011, brought to the United States, convicted, and then was sentenced to 25 years for basically selling guns to terrorists and dictators and being a real pain in the rear end to the United States and also threatening Americans. And then I discovered that Viktorbout is serving his 25-year prison term about 5 miles from where I'm sitting. So as you put together a story, you want to try and find experts or somebody who could talk about it. There was one guy that came to mind who has actually written a couple of books about being pursued by Vladimir Putin. By all accounts, he is Vladimir Putin's #1 enemy. His name is Bill Browder. And I wanted him to chime in on this whole issue about Brittney Griner and this Viktorbout, about this whole impending trade that's going on. So here's my interview now with Bill Browder. So, you being somewhat familiar with the way Putin operates, is this a deal that you think that he will take, or what do you think his thoughts are?
Well, so first of all, let's look at all the different components. You have Viktorbout, who is a very bad man. Viktorbout, they made a movie about his character. It was called The Lord of War.
Selling guns is like selling vacuum cleaners. You make calls, pound the pavement. I supplied every army but the Salvation Army.
Can you bring me the gun of Rambo?
Part 1, 2, or 3.
I've only seen part 1.
By the mid-'80s, my weapons were represented in 8 of the world's top 10 war zones.
Damn, you are good.
Yeah, he's not just an arms dealer, he's a dealer of death. He's a person who sold weapons to every different dictator, to every different terrorist group around the world. He was really a bad guy. And eventually, after many years on the run, being chased by the U.S. authorities and other authorities, the U.S. finally caught him about 15 years ago in Thailand. And so he's an extremely high-value target. And that's demonstrated by the fact that he's in one of the few supermax prisons in America, how dangerous and kind of difficult a man he is. And so we need to understand that this man is truly like the top of the wanted list. So that's on one side. And then on the other side, you've got Brittney Griner, who is a basketball player who made the mistake of having a vaping pipe in her bag. And then you've got Paul Whelan, who didn't do anything at all, nothing. And both of them were taken hostage, and I believe specifically taken hostage so that they could orchestrate some type of prisoner swap like what we're talking about today. And so I think it's very generous trade by Biden to basically trade the most high-value target for these people who did nothing wrong, but of course we want to get them back, and so here we are. And this is standard operating procedure for Vladimir Putin to take hostages, to swap them for people he values.
What are your thoughts on? I mean, and you, if anybody else, if there's any expert on how, but when the Griner arrives in Moscow, to basically play basketball there, and gets caught, at what point does her arrest or detention make it up to Putin's desk? And I'm sure there's a mechanism in place. Was this just an opportunity for Putin to look for different individuals, or how do you think that whole mechanism kind of operates?
Well, I think that the way it normally works is that if they can find somebody who's done anything wrong, who's an American, that's like a super opportunity for the Russians. And there was another American, a former Marine named Trevor Reed, who got into a bar fight, and they ended up swapping him for a Russian drug and arms dealer named Konstantin Yaroshenko. And so the Russians, in some cases, they actually fabricate criminal cases to take hostages. In some cases, they just, once they realize they've had somebody, then they become, a bargaining chip, a trading chip for the people that the Russians want. And the Russians Russia is a criminal state. And so if you have somebody who's a verified arms dealer or a verified drug dealer, those are sort of like, chief commanders in the Russian, operation. And so that they're not going to let those people sit in American prison, and they're going to try to get them out, and they're going to get them out by taking innocent people hostage effectively. Brittney Griner shouldn't have spent a day in jail. It's a non-crime that she was convicted of. And the fact that they took her and sentenced her to 10 years in prison is a shocking miscarriage of justice. And the same thing is true of Paul Whelan, who literally did nothing. They just fabricated a case against him and sentenced him, I believe, to 15 years in prison for nothing. And so this is just cynical hostage taking by the Russian government.
I know there's concern about Bout being sent back to Russia and what kind of future threat he would be. Do you think he's a future threat, or is he more valued as more propaganda for Putin to be able to, show that he can, get these kind of deals done, I guess?
Well, I think he's all of the above. I mean, this is a man who spent his whole life dealing with the most unsavory characters in the world, selling them arms. He knows how to do it. Russia's in a major international conflict right now, trying to evade sanctions. I think his expertise would be very valuable to the Russian government right now. And so I would assume that in exchange for getting him out, they want to put him back to work. That's how they operate over there. And so I think he'll get a hero's welcome. He'll get a meeting with the president, and he'll end up using his expertise, which I'm sure is not all that outdated, to help Putin run circles around sanctions and so on, which is what Viktorbout knows how to do.
I wanted to talk a little bit about your case. Incidentally, this is one of your second book, Freezing Order, and I've been glancing through it. And of course, your arrest in Madrid, Spain, was fascinating, considering that was just in 2018, I guess. I take it when you just wrote about that. And in that case, you came up on Interpol. A Russian warrant was issued for you. And maybe kind of touch on that story a little bit. And I think you made the remark in there that Twitter got you out of that predicament.
So Vladimir Putin has wanted to either kill me abroad or bring me back to Russia and kill me in Russia ever since I got a piece of legislation passed called the Magnitsky Act, which is named after my murdered lawyer, Sergei Magnitsky, a Russian lawyer. Sergei had uncovered a big Russian corruption scheme, testified against it, and they arrested him, tortured him for 358 days, and killed him. And since then, I've been trying to get justice for Sergei, and I ended up with this legislation which freezes the assets and bans the visas of human rights violators in Russia. And Putin, since then, has been trying to kill me. And I was arrested on a Russian Interpol warrant in May of 2018 as I was visiting Spain. I was invited to Spain by the chief anti-corruption prosecutor of Spain to provide evidence on Putin's money laundering in Spain. And just before I was going to go to the meeting, I was arrested by two armed police from the Spanish National Police on a Russian Interpol warrant. Thankfully, I had an opportunity to tweet out that I was being arrested. And at that point, the whole world sort of woke up in the same way as they have for Brittney Griner right now. And everyone started calling up Interpol. They started calling up the Spanish police. And eventually, the Spanish police realized that they had sort of wandered into a ridiculous mess that they shouldn't have gone anywhere near, and they released me. But I could have been one of those hostages, and that was one of the scariest moments of my life, to think that I might have been sent back to Russia, where they would probably do terrible things to me and then kill me.
Yeah, well, it was an extremely detailed story. Again, it's in your latest book, Freezing Order. It's out there, and it's a good read, very detailed. You're a good writer. You go into extraordinary detail, and you're apparently an individual who takes a lot of notes, because there's a lot of details and what goes on. So, all right, Bill Browder, thank you very much for talking with us this afternoon and shedding some light on this one case that's going on right now.
Thank you.